Вот это ебучее Министерство обороны и командование Министерства обороны. Вас, пидорасов, надо сюда посадить, нахуй, всех, блядь, главнокомандующих, нахуй, на наше место, блядь. Вот, брался. Сидим, да?
It seems a commander of a Russian army tactical group has rebelled. In a video, he complains that soldiers are sent to hopeless positions like cattle, valued only for equipment, not their lives. He notes the command doesn't care about operations and suggests sending them to the front line instead of the troops.
Вот, брался. Сидим, да? Хуй пойми, где, в каком подвале, нахуй. По нам ебашит миномет 120-й, блядь. Все, пизда нам, нахуй. Вычислили нас, блядь. А потому что командование пидорасы, блядь. Потому что, блядь, хуеплеты, нахуй, едут туда, блядь, где уже, нахуй, неоднократно нас чуть не разъебало, блядь. Они один хуй туда едут, нахуй, и нас как мясо гонят, нахуй. Переживают только, нахуй, за технику, ебать. На нас им похуй, мы обычные пехотинцы, нам им похуй вообще на нас. Они вон даже по рации на нас не уходят, нахуй, не спрашивают, как у нас тут дела, блядь, да? Вот пацаны, блядь, не дадут соврать, нахуй, блядь. Какая хуйня у нас тут творится, блядь, вот. Вот в каких условиях мы сейчас, нахуй, сидим, это, блядь, пиздец, нахуй, блядь. И всем похуй, нахуй. Вот это ебучее Министерство обороны и командование Министерства обороны. Вас, пидорасов, надо сюда посадить, нахуй, всех, блядь, главнокомандующих, нахуй, на наше место, блядь.
FPV drones of the Ukrainian armed forces took out a squad of e-scooter riding clowns floundering across a field near Pokrovsk. It's more like a prank from Russian command on their own troops. Since the beginning of 2025, Russian forces have suffered over 100,000 casualties in Ukraine. Ukrainian Armed Forces Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky said, "Thanks to the coordinated and professional work of our defenders, total Russian losses in manpower since the start of this year have exceeded 100,000, Syrsky stated. He praised Ukrainian troops for their professionalism and resilience, emphasizing that the country's defense forces continue to eliminate Russian troops along the entire front line. Ukraine's general staff reported that Russian forces lost approximately 1,400 soldiers, killed and wounded, over the past 24 hours. In early January, Ukraine's defense ministry announced that the Ukrainian armed forces had eliminated 430,790 Russian troops throughout 2024. To put this into perspective, that figure is roughly equivalent to 36 motorized rifle divisions of the Russian army. Syrsky reported that Russia's total irrecoverable losses in personnel over 3 years of war stood at about 250,000 troops. British intelligence estimated that Russian forces had lost 90,000 troops, killed and wounded, since the start of 2025. The Economist published an analysis stating that Russian casualties in Ukraine had been rising exponentially, from approximately 20,000 deaths in 2022 to around 50,000 in 2025, 2023, and nearly 100,000 in 2024. While politicians discuss a possible ceasefire in Russia's war against Ukraine, Ukrainians on the ground aren't holding their breath. Many believe the war is far from over, and they're preparing to keep fighting, the Sunday Times reported. The report noted that if President Volodymyr Zelensky's government were to give up Ukraine's sovereignty for peace, the sense of betrayal in the country would be overwhelming. The article features Pavlo, a Ukrainian soldier training at a camp near Kyiv with the 3rd Separate Assault Brigade. He's preparing to head to the front lines. "We've been fighting Russia for hundreds of years," Pavlo said. Like many of his fellow soldiers, he's determined to be ready for whatever comes next, and he doesn't believe peace is around the corner. As diplomats held talks in Moscow, Jeddah, and Washington about a potential 30-day ceasefire, instructors from the 3rd Brigade were busy preparing volunteers for combat, the Sunday Times reported. Russia's demands remain unacceptable to most Ukrainians. Disarmament, an end to Western military aid, and abandoning NATO ambitions. Janina Dill, an Oxford University professor who conducted extensive public opinion surveys in Ukraine after Russia's full-scale invasion, said Ukrainians are determined to resist Russian control over their government, even if the cost is high. Ukrainians are ready to resist a Belarus-style Russian grip on Kyiv's government at any cost, she said. Dill added that Ukrainians reject strategies that might raise the risk of Russian political control, even if those strategies could save lives or reduce the threat of nuclear war. They're willing to bear the cost of resisting Russian aggression, she said. In one recent training exercise, volunteers attacked a mock Russian position. Flashbang grenades exploded, turning the forest into a chaotic battlefield for a brief moment. Watching closely was a fighter with the call sign, Student, who has faced death twice, literally. He's been declared clinically dead twice after being wounded, the article noted, but he survived. I can tell you only one thing, Student said. This war won't end soon. The report also quoted Alex, a young man who once worked as a miner in eastern Ukraine. This is our reality, he said. If you live in Ukraine, you must be ready to fight, like Israel's IDF. I'm ready to fight. Taras Chmut, head of the Comeback Alive Foundation, told the article's author that Ukraine's fate won't be sealed by Russia's strategy alone. We will lose only if we are weak, Chmut said. He added that Ukrainians are mentally prepared for the worst, whether that's the president's death, a nuclear strike, or a complete halt to Western military aid. The idea of a 30-day ceasefire emerged during US-led talks with Ukraine in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia on March 11th. President Zelensky confirmed that Ukraine is willing to agree to a temporary ceasefire, but only if Russia commits as well. On March 13th, Yuri Ushakov, assistant to the Russian dictator, dismissed the proposed ceasefire as nothing more than a break for Ukrainian forces. He claimed that Russia doesn't need steps that imitate peace efforts. That same day, Russian dictator Vladimir Putin claimed Russia was open to a ceasefire, but there are nuances. US President Donald Trump described Putin's response as promising but incomplete. Meanwhile, Zelensky called Putin's remarks manipulative, suggesting the Kremlin was laying the groundwork to reject the ceasefire proposal altogether. Zelensky, Jeddah is serious progress. It will be difficult for Russia to get out of it. It has to demonstrate if it goes to the end of the war or it wants to continue the war.
Everyone congratulated Ukraine on a real victory in Jeddah, a victory of diplomacy. Everyone believes this is significant progress, and it will now be difficult for Russia to maneuver out of this. It must demonstrate, if it is heading to ceasefire, that it supports ending the war or wants to continue the war. And exactly Volodymyr Zelensky. Everyone is expecting this on their part. Everyone will be sending signals to the United States of America. I want to thank the American delegation, and I truly believe that President Trump had a good conversation with his delegation. I have contacts with my delegation. We truly achieved success. At the meeting, during the meeting in Saudi Arabia, this needs to be continued.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Every day. We had a guy last week, it's 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.